I hate myself for suggesting this as a video series. Let's keep plugging and playing, I guess.
Imagination was in short supply when they named Magic Rectangle. Unfortunately, the same can also be said for the game. It's Breakout. Very slow Breakout. I'm actually surprised to see what the UI at the bottom looks like because on my TV screen, half of it was cut off. It's pretty sad when the robot arms that set up each stage are the best animated thing out of all the games so far. The paddle may look round, but it only deflects the ball in 4 different directions, and even then the ball doesn't bounce at the correct angle half the time. This holds true for the blocks and walls too, as at one point the ball got stuck bouncing sideways and I had to just wait for it to escape limbo. Even without this happening, I was so bored I nodded off after about 10 minutes. Welcome to Ice Hockey, a game so exciting the players look like they've overdosed on NyQuil. What's that? Why is ice hockey not in the sports section? Get out of here with that nonsense. Only games with gimmicky motion controls are considered sports. Choose between a wide variety of 4 teams. The Pittsburgh Ice Hockeys, the Minnesota Ice Hockeys, the Toronto Ice Hockeys, and lest we forget, the Detroit Ice Hockeys. Then play through 3 agonizing 5-minute sets, of course. It's tennis which has periods, not hockey. Why is it doing that? Marvel at how the players move like they just learned how to skate 5 minutes ago, reaching top speeds so slow they'd get lapped by the fucking Zamboni. Equally pathetic are the controls. When you have 4 face buttons to work with, the absolute best thing you can do is only use 2 of them and assign passing and stealing to the same input. That way, if the planets align and you actually get steals to work, you'll immediately throw the puck away. Gaze in awe as the game switches the player you control despite not touching the swap button. No matter who you play though, your shot at maximum power is so slow and ineffective you'd swear you were actually playing as Montreal. Even worse than them are the goalies. If the players are stuck moving at bullet time speeds, then the goalie's reaction time is as fast as groundwater. Any shot within 10 feet of the net is nearly guaranteed to get in the net. It doesn't even have to be aimed at the net as the puck can just phase through the side and still count. Sure, it sucks when it happens to you, but the fans absolutely love it. Just listen to how excited they are to witness this spectacle. To be fair, that's what most Arizona Coyotes games sound like.
Fair warning, there will be 2 appalling things happening at once in the next game's title screen.
What the fuck is that?
Pick the pro-choice argument you can tolerate the most and throw boulders at mice before they crawl into the holes. Yeah, not sure why the start of graphics shows a hammer, you just throw rocks the entire time. Nothing especially bad, but nothing especially fun either. Highway racing. It's Spy Hunter without guns and either a way smaller road or way bigger cars. Dodge cars and get to the end before fuel runs out, but if you touch the walls, you explode and lose a lot of gas. Never mind all those cops getting run off the road, we have unknown places to go and ambiguous things to do. Levels are annoyingly long, but you can get a bit of fuel back by slamming into gas trucks? I won't even attempt to understand that. Or how if you knock other cars into the tankers, they can pick up the gas. I'm still wrapping my head around how this is what the last level looks like. 2 tiny lanes and no room to dodge anything. Not that it matters because highway racing is only 3 levels long, so at least it's quick, if not painless. Why does the cat have a patch of hair? Greedy Cat is a puzzle game where you skewer matching fish to hit a point goal for each stage. You can have up to 7 or 8 fish on the skewer at once, so you can save some while matching others. There are also 2 powers with cooldowns available, one which clears off the skewer and one which eliminates a column of fish. The game drags because it splits levels into 5 stages, but it can be played at a fast pace and, aside from the picky timing for the skewer sometimes, it plays just fine. You know what? I hereby dub this not so bad.
Wow.
grab rocks, gold, and gems so you can buy stuff to get more rocks, gold, and gems. That's assuming you can aim well for the smaller stuff because the hitbox for the claw itself is ridiculously small. There are items you can buy like, what the fuck are you? Like explosives to blow up something you accidentally grabbed and don't want, but aside from that and the passive skills, half the items have no explanation for how to use them. Just don't get something worth too many points or you get to hear that rabbit shriek from the ski game again. No, you're doing it wrong. It's like this. Wow! Even so, the rewards and level limits are completely out of line. By level 11, I was able to do absolutely nothing and still meet the target for the next stage, which I also did absolutely nothing in and still passed. Even in the following stage I did nothing and was only a few $100s short of the target goal. Well, at least it didn't play when I won like in that checkers game. Who's up for some kinda sorta bootleg Contra? Future Warrior is an isometric shooter where you sometimes pilot a really cheap looking mech. Your first instinct is to take the mech whenever possible because it has a health bar and a wider shooting range. It also collects other mechs to replenish said health bar. Sadly, it's a much bigger target and depending on which mech you select, you'll get either one which shoots large balls of energy which look like they were made with the MS Paint spray tool, which are kind of strong but kind of suck because their fire rate is so slow. Or you'll get one with a wider shot which is so weak you'd be better off getting out of the mech to shoot anything. The mechs are also ridiculously weak, as ordinary soldiers can take off significant chunks of health from them. On foot you can roll dodge, but that seems to just be a speed boost more than an actual dodge. Also the game says dodging is done by double tapping, but it's actually assigned to the B button. On the other hand, the game actually has an ending, even if it's just saying you finished the game, but on the other, this is what it sounds like when you finish a level. Just to be clear, I'm not docking points for using Final Fantasy music, I'm docking points for using Final Fantasy VIII music.
That counter should probably be higher because other people who have watched the past videos pointed out things lifted from other games that I didn't recognize. And if you start counting things that are reused across multiple games on this thing, well, I mean, that's a video I don't want to make in a world I don't want to live in.
Fruit Link is an unremarkable puzzle game where you match fruit tiles. They have to be either next to each other or have a clear path to each other or you can't match them. As such, sometimes the game will start up in ways that make it impossible to win. A versus mode and co-op can't save you at that point because who would play this with you aside from the excited dad on the box art? Forest Adventure. It's Adventure Island, but you're able to stop running and your life counter starts. Holy shit, really? After using the Star of David to see where the next level is.
And no, that's not a sentence I expected to say in my lifetime.
You run forward and try to dodge or destroy every enemy in the way. That's easier said than done because for whatever reason there is a massive input delay on the controls and it changes as the game goes on. Sometimes it's barely noticeable and sometimes it's approaching a full second before the jump button does anything. I also got sick of the cartoon sound effect mashup death sounds in a hurry. Flying Rabbit. Oh my god, this rabbit somehow looks worse than the one from the skiing game. Fly through a bunch of stages blasting enemies with your weapons you somehow have. Or maybe that shit-eating grin is somehow shooting everything. I thought the levels were really long, but they're actually 4 minutes or less apiece. It turns out the game is just that boring. Enemies show up in small groups and there's a long pause before the next wave shows up. They're never a threat because power-ups are constantly showing up, and the charge attack can wipe out anything except bosses in one hit. It also goes through multiple enemies, and recharges ridiculously fast. On top of all that, you get an extra life for collecting 20 carrots, meaning you'll get at least 4 extra lives every level. Even as someone who's no good at shoot-'em-ups, I had over 20 lives by level 4. Bosses offer no challenge, and are just regular enemies upscaled and given a slightly different attack. And even if you do get hit, you just start back up sans one power-up, which you can immediately get back. Well, at least there are only 8 levels of... there's an arrow, implying there are more than 8 levels. Well, I'm done here. If you thought the earlier puzzle games were too slow-paced, 5 Diamonds says hold my beer. Match 5 colored diamonds over and over and over until all spaces are filled or you hit the target score, depending on what mode you're on. They appear every time you make a move by selecting a diamond and sliding it across the stage with the start button. Why do these games keep using the start button when the X and Y buttons aren't used at all?
If I had to guess, it's probably because these games were designed for a console with fewer buttons. Oh no. Oh god, don't tell me these games showed up on another console.
Clearance mode has a couple items you can use, one being a hat which removes 1 gem from the field, and a bomb which takes out all gems of a single color. These can be bought after each stage, though it implies you can buy several of them even though you can only ever have one. There's a catch though. Those points you earned in the previous stage, they don't carry over. So when you buy either item, you start the stage with a negative score. Buying both starts you 1,100 points in the hole. Fortunately, the music will have already put you to sleep, so you won't be too mad about that. How can any game hope to live up to a name like Firebolt Swordman? I'll give it this much, it's the best shoot 'em up on the console so far. For whatever that's worth. You choose between 2 lazily named protagonists, JH and JX.
What kind of person just has a string of letters as their name?
And shoot your way through 4 levels. Even with my self-professed ineptitude at shoot-em-ups, I got through this in one try in under 15 minutes. That's not to say this game doesn't have a lot of problems. There are only 3 music tracks in the whole game, one of which is the same track Magic Fairy used for bosses. The bomb counter can only go up to 5. Depending on the stage, some attacks can blend into the background. Bosses all have the same movement and attack pattern with only slightly different attacks. Sometimes hitboxes flat out don't work, and when you back up, it's the same animation as taking damage. Also, this is the item pickup sound. At least the backgrounds are a bit more dynamic, moving up and down as the level progresses, and the 2 characters do have slightly different bomb attacks, even if they end up behaving the same way. They also get their own victory screens. Whenever I see them, all I can think is... and...
Muffy, Buffy, Biff Jr. and I are going on our Sunday drive.
Oh, no, you ain't. You're gonna play
Extreme F1. Somehow not as impactful despite having the word extreme in the title. This is pole position. It's not even trying to hide it, it's pole position, down to the low and high gear shifting which the game never explains how to do. There's no actual pole position though, and the game doesn't track what place you're in. You just finish 2 laps before the clock runs out and move on to the next course. There are a decent number of courses, but in each of the 3 modes, you eventually hit a course where the lap counter breaks and you can't finish the race. At least the other games kicked back to the title screen at the end instead of putting me in an unwinnable situation. Oh, and the sound is almost as bad as that motorcycle game. Dr. Genius, a remarkably generic puzzle-solving game. Get to the end goal by pushing and pulling various objects and avoiding traps. It's every bit as unremarkable as the main character looks, despite there being a good number of levels. The only noteworthy thing is how well this guy reacts to a several dozen-foot fall.
Whoa.
Dinosaur Factory, where dreams go to die. Assemble a set amount of dinosaurs on a conveyor belt before any part hits the end. Otherwise, it's game over. You have to assemble the ones the kids at the bottom of the screen ask for by putting together all 4 limbs, a torso, and a head. Each limb is unique, but they all look so similar it's hard to tell them apart. Also, once you put some items together, they can't be separated, even if they're just a pair of limbs held together by an imaginary skeleton. Add in that you always have a piece selected, so I frequently combined parts by accident when I wanted to just select a different one. The only thing more annoying than that is the sound the dinosaurs make when they're fully assembled. There are power-ups to stop and rewind the conveyor belt, but those have a tendency to lock the cursor in place, eliminating the point of using them in the first place. There are way too many levels in this if the overworld map is anything to go by. A map which looks like someone borrowed decorations from Pee-wee's Playhouse. The last nail in the bootleg coffin is something specific to me and anyone else who's colorblind. Beyond level 5, I couldn't tell the difference between two of the colors, all but making it impossible to play.
And now for the Crazy Trilogy, which sadly does not include Crazy Taxi or ripoff thereof.
Crazy Step is Q*bert. No, really, look, it's Q*bert, but with more convoluted maps and way slower. Even the amount of points you get for each cube is the same as Q*bert. And they reused the character from Dr. Genius. Speaking of reused, the backgrounds are some of the same generic images I've been seeing in the backgrounds of several puzzle games. You know what else is reused? Crazy Lamb. This is just about shooting wolves, or their balloons, before they either shoot the lamb or sabotage the gears making the lift work. The bulk of the game is a monotonous slog, just hanging out at the bottom of the screen while holding down the fire button. The power-up for rapid fire makes this an even more viable strategy. Don't get hit even once though, otherwise you'll have to start the stage over. Every 10 levels there's a boss with no discernible patterns for movement or attacks, other than a bullet and a missile with minor heat-seeking to it. Have I mentioned I can actually feel myself dying as I go from game to game? Just thought I'd throw that out there. Lastly, there's Crazy Fish, or as I like to think of it, Boar. Get it? It's spore, but with a B. Boar. Seriously, it's like Spore but with fish and without the customization or the evolving environment. You eat small fish so you can grow up and eat bigger fish, which can include really tiny sharks and orcas, until the game tells you to stop. Just like the other Crazy games, there are way too many levels in Crazy Fish for you to begin to care about what the ending might look like. You often won't be able to see what's slightly off screen because of the bad camera, so you'll likely get eaten by bigger fish or run into depth charges just out of view. It's a new level of boring when the most interesting thing about a game is that it doesn't know how to spell game over.
And that brings us to Cheese Maze. Now, with a name like Cheese Maze, you might expect to see something like a mouse navigating a giant maze made out of cheese. Certainly not a mutant Cyclops baby with the voice of a trumpet trying to navigate very small cheese rooms.
Well, that's exactly what Cheese Maze is. The one nice thing I can say is that when you're down to one life, it shrinks your character model and hitbox. Other than that, this is a shit show. It recycles 2 music tracks from prior games which alternate between each level. The cheese obstacles, even when they aren't active, still damage you. The extra lives counter maxes out at 3. The rooms are so small you can complete some of them in seconds, but that's assuming you don't get screwed over because the wall obstacles are entirely random. I had the same amount of success waiting for a clear space to walk through as I did running at them and hoping they didn't hit me. Charge! Did they somehow misspell the title of this game? Kate Match is Bejeweled or Candy Crush or any other variant of the switch one puzzle piece around and make matches of 3 game which I absolutely loathe. Clear out the blue squares to win, which sometimes requires clearing immovable blocks. There's supposed to be a hammer item which appears when you match them up and allows you to clear out one space, but it usually just appears whenever it feels like it instead of when matching hammers on the board. Also, don't ask me how the timer works because every time I looked, the hourglass hadn't changed. This is also around the time I realized the batteries in the controller were nearly dead. For those keeping score, we're a little over 1/3 of the way through these games, and I'm already out 3 AAA batteries. Oh god, what is this? I thought this was called Candy Bear, not... Oh. God, it's just Cheese Maze again, isn't it?
Okie dokie.
It's a Mario clone. The level layouts, enemies, level counter, and power-ups are the same as Super Mario Bros., and the sounds and music are lifted or badly edited from Super Mario World, Mario 64, or All-Stars. If I counted every individual asset, the counter would explode, so I'm going to be generous and only increase it by 50. I may or may not be making up for ones I missed, but anyway, the in-game level counter and the level graphic don't match, but that's the least of this game's problems. Jumping feels flat out wrong, as sometimes your momentum completely dies when you try to do it. This is only made worse by there being no way to run and severely limited mid-air control. Every level ends with a flag, but instead of wandering into a castle, the bear rockets into space, presumably so it can die on the way to its home planet. Actually, I shouldn't say every level. See, the pipes don't do anything in this game. So in, say, the underwater stages, where walking and swimming are the same speed and underwater currents don't exist, you hit the edge of the map and the stage just ends. King Koopa fights are dull slogs where you spam quote-unquote fireballs until the thing dies, because it can't be damaged otherwise. Getting hit means having to wait for the power-ups to reappear before spamming more fireballs. I can't recognize that sound, but it sounds like something from a Donkey Kong Country game. Did I mention the level music doesn't stop playing, even when the death jingle is going at the same time? As shocking as this may sound, Bubble Boy is another Puzzle Bobble clone. This time though, it doesn't engage in the same brand of asset theft as the other Puzzle Bobble clone. This includes a gauge on the left, which never moves, an invisible timer for each move because the one on screen just counts the time it takes to complete each stage, no clear line for when a game over happens, and the ability to explore bubbles around. I didn't have the same color blindness problem as the other one, but this game makes up for that by making the boy mildly terrifying after every stage cleared. Bricks Climber, because it's nowhere near cool enough to be Ice Climbers. But it's pretty much the same game. Climb the stage, scrap the bricks, make it to the top, and advance while not staring at the sun because it's self-conscious about its ugliness. I swear the jingles and sounds used in this game sound familiar, but I can't place what exactly they're from. Aside from reusing enemies and songs from prior games, the camera sometimes refuses to pan up. That can mean hitting obstacles which either spawn on top of you, or which you couldn't see, and losing a life. Possibly more than one because there's no invulnerability on respawn. Super Bomberman, Bomb Superman, starring that one boy from the crappy puzzle games earlier. The perfect game for anyone who ever said, I like Bomberman, but I would like it more if it were a lot slower. Also, I want the B button to cause bombs to explore. There are only 6 levels with the same one enemy randomly pathing everywhere, but later levels get wide open and make it hard to effectively go after them. Blazing Fighter, a game which is even less interesting than the name suggests. Pick one of 5 fighters, then face all of them. I jokingly picked the shortest one so everyone's attacks would go over my head. Then it actually happened and I easily won several rounds. That's still not a worse design choice than having light kick assigned to the start button, or having a light and heavy kick, but only a light punch, or each character having one name in the selection menu and a different one during the fights, or flat out not saying how to do special moves or supers, or being able to win every match with either jump kicks or move spamming, at least until the mirror match when we just traded special moves the entire time. I'm as enthusiastic about this game as the announcer is.
On the spot.
Go!
9-ball. It's 9-ball. It works, it's just really boring. All I can say about this is, why is Little Town of Bethlehem playing in the background? Is it Christmas in this billiard hall? Wolf is coming.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Get all the pigs to the entrance before time runs out, all the while trying not to get hit by the larger pigs. This game is... actually, it's okay. By comparison to everything else on this console, I mean. The larger pigs throw apples to stun you, which gets quite annoying when there are 2 or more of them. Don't worry though, because there's an item which can, and I quote, suspend the pig's offensive. Or you can just sneak up and knock them out, whatever works. The idea is to focus less on grabbing the pigs, and more on steering them toward the goal before picking them up, which is either a decent design choice, or a decent design choice made completely by accident. Even the stuff that's flat out broken is broken in the player's favor, like how the large pig enemies will get stuck in their walk cycle, walk through the environment, and exit the stage entirely. All in all, I didn't come out of this game wanting to lob the console into a volcano, so it's head and shoulders above most of the other games. That includes Western Hero, a Western game with a... rap soundtrack? This is Sunset Riders' setting with Metal Slug's gameplay. No, really. You can rescue hostages like in Metal Slug, get items from them like in Metal Slug, and attack with a knife at close range like in Metal Slug. It also lifts the enemy getting shot sound effects from GoldenEye. I know those sounds are from other things too, but that's what I know them from. There are only 2 weapons, a slow-to-fire rifle, and the much faster dual pistols picked up from hostages which have finite ammo. Doesn't matter much though, the pistol shots, rifle shots, and knife attack all do the same amount of damage. Making matters worse is that the rifle's rate of fire is broken. If you move while shooting, the delay is completely gone, so just hold forward and mash the fire button. This makes it pretty easy to burn through enemies and bosses, even if it does result in a couple of naked gun moments. The one positive out of all this is that the game is only 4 levels long and can be completed in under 15 minutes. Trust me, that is a positive. Wave Man, starring that one kid from the Puzzle Bobble clone earlier. It's basically Mario Brothers, without the pipes, or the POW blocks, or fire, and with a bizarre ball gimmick.
Ball!
Enemies are defeated by turning them into balls and knocking them around the screen, and you can somehow get stuck in them. Every once in a while an upscaled enemy masquerading as a boss shows up, and that's the one remotely interesting thing about this game. Well, unless you count enemies falling through the stage. Or the ability to have more 4 power. And the game just ends after about 18 minutes and 10 levels. Not even a congratulations screen like the other games. And lastly, we have The Mouse and the Cat.
Did Jerry just eat? Fuck it! I'm done! There's a part 4. It's not happening anytime soon. Fucking 30 games of video. What was I thinking with this bullshit? There probably will be a part 4. Why did I agree to... Why did I suggest this? Kind of person just has a